Hey everybody, welcome back to a discussion video. Today we're going to talk about Indeedee. My wife's asleep. I'm going to try not to wake her up, so the audio on this video might be kind of weird. I'm sorry. But basically, I just wanted to talk about Indeedee female because this generation has basically given Indeedee role compression on par with like Incineroar and Among Us, and nobody's really talking about it. Like yeah, obviously, like people talked about it when I got Trick Room. My most viewed video on the channel is actually a video talking about how Indeedee gets Trick Room now and it's legal, and that's, you know, that's gotta account for something because really, like, not that many people have made videos about specifically Indeedee, and I don't think some people understand how big of a deal it is that Indeedee female gets Trick Room now, because roll it back to, Sword and Shield, right? It used to be that Indeedee male got Trick Room and Indeedee female got Follow Me, and like they were both kind of like semi-support Pokemon. They had different supporting moves. Indeedee male was a little bit more offensive, but for the most part, like they both had supporting moves, and they just kind of supported in different ways. And now the script is kind of flipped because now Indeedee female gets all of the good supporting moves mostly, and Indeedee male gets expanding force because it's TM now, and only the male one gets expanding force. Indeedee female does not learn expanding force, and it did last gen, which is kind of a nerf, but not really. It doesn't need it's shown this generation that it doesn't even really need expanding force. Let's talk about it, okay? So you've got Indeedee female, okay? It is the only Pokemon that gets Trick Room and Follow Me and priority blocking. It sets a terrain, which is Psychic Terrain, which blocks all priority moves, or Pokemon that are touching the ground. So like flying types can still be hit by priority moves even if Psychic Terrain is up. If you didn't know that, now you know. But it is the only Pokemon that gets Trick Room and Follow Me and priority blocking. And honestly, like, I know that everybody's going crazy about Farigiraf, and Farigiraf is cool and all, but for me, Indeedee goes on almost every Trick Room team because it is just that good. It does that much for every Trick Room team it is on, and it's bulky. Like look at these stats. It has 70, 65, 105. So it has a lot of special defense, which means you can run a lot of defense investment because your special defense is already really high. If we compare that to like Incineroar, 95, 90, 90, like total, it's about the same. Let's see. Do some math here. 70 plus 65 plus 105 is 240. No, it's a little less. 95, 90, 90. 95 plus 90 plus 90. It's only about 30 points off from being like as bulky as Incineroar, and you can run Psychic Seed, and you can get that special defense boost off of Psychic Seed, and you actually become bulkier than Incineroar because you can just run like max defense investment and then get the Psychic Seed, and now you're as bulky. And obviously it goes away if you switch out, but it's really, really cool. And if we look at like the move pool here, like Alluring Voice is pretty neat. People have been running it on things. I haven't seen it take off, but basically if another Pokemon had its stat boosted this turn, you have a 100% chance to confuse them, which is really neat. It's kind of like it's very similar to Burning Jealousy. Is Alluring Voice a spread move? I actually have no idea. I haven't used it. Kind of like a Siren Song kind of deal, which is neat. It is a spread. No, it's not a spread move. May affect. Yeah, it's just a single target move, which makes it kind of weird compared to Burning Jealousy. But if we look at Indeedee's like full move pool, right? Like you get Baton Pass, which is cool because you get like boosted moves like Combine and stuff. You get Fake Out, which is really funny because most of the time you're not going to be able to click it, but in closed team sheets you can run like non-Psychic Search Indeedee and run Fake Out, which is funny. You get Healing Wish, which means you faint and the next Pokemon gets fully healed, which is interesting. You get both screens, which is cool. It's not a a fast Pokemon to do it with, but if you just need like one random screen, it's there if you need it. It also gets Psych Up and Stored Power, which is really cool for some strategies where you want redirection anyway. You get Heal Pulse, you get Imprison, which is nice for stopping other people's Trick Rooms. Skill Swap is really, handy sometimes. This move pool is not super deep, but it has all of the tools that it needs, okay? Like, honestly, 9 times out of 10, Trick Room, Follow Me, Helping Hand, Attacking Move, usually you'll just run, like, Psychic because it's boosted by Psychic Terrain. Though, if you have a bunch of other Psychic-type Pokemon on your team, you'll go, like, Dazzling Gleam or maybe Alluring Voice. And, like, for me, this is the reason it goes in every Trick Room team, okay? It just... Indeedee pretty much by itself stops everything that can stop a Trick Room, except for spread moves. And if you put it together with like another Pokemon that can stop spread moves, you basically can't have your Trick Room be stopped, and that's amazing. That is so huge for any Trick Room team that you're building. And like, people aren't running so much counter Trick Room in like tournaments right now, but on the ladder you see a lot of like random counter Trick Room because it's a lot harder to prepare for it if it's not a best of 3 and you don't necessarily know for sure like that it's coming. Like we just saw in the regional that ended yesterday, Charlotte, there were a lot of teams just running random Farigiraf because it's kind of like a one-mod answer to a lot of priority stuff. It gives you the access to like Trick Room and Speed Control. It's neat Pokemon, but it's more like offensive, and that's why it's easier to run as like a one-off. But for like a Trick Room team, like it's really hard to just beat having Indeedee. And if we look, at Incineroar gets a crazy amount of moves because it's a starter Pokemon. But a lot of them are like weird physical attacking moves that doesn't want for like supporting moves because Incineroar most of the time is a supporting Pokemon. You get Fake Out, you get Parting Shot, you get Roar, which is really cool. Endeavor is neat, but not like, you're not really gonna run Endeavor and Incineroar. Throat Chop can be a really good move. Will-O-Wisp, you've got it just gets U-turn and like Snarl, and they kind of do different things, but like Incineroar's whole deal is it is basically the best Intimidate Pokemon because it gets Intimidate, it gets a pivoting move that also lowers stats, which is crazy. It has crazy bulk, so it can pretty much live anything. And the thing that's in common between these two Pokemon is they're pretty much the best at their role. Okay? Indeedee is like the best like Trick Room supporting like redirection Pokemon. Indeedee might as well be the best redirection Pokemon like in general. Like I know we have Amoonguss, and Amoonguss is really good at redirecting, but Amoonguss does a lot of other things differently from Indeedee, and you can actually just run both of them on the same team. Indeedee might as well be the best redirection Pokemon, and Incineroar is like the best Intimidate Pokemon, and they have a lot of things that are in common. Like just the amount of things that this one Pokemon can do on one team is crazy. Same thing for Amoonguss. Amoonguss gets redirection, it gets Rage Powder, but Rage Powder is not perfect, okay? Grass-type Pokemon are immune to Rage Powder. Grass-type Pokemon are immune to Spore. Like, Grass-type Pokemon pretty much just wall Amoonguss, and yeah, Dark-type Pokemon, Indeedee can't damage them, but Indeedee can at least redirect their attacks and, like, help its partner beat them. Whereas Amoonguss pretty much just kind of doesn't take damage from Grass-type Pokemon, but it can't do anything to them either. And then if we look at Farigiraf, right, like, Farigiraf does get Ally Switch, which is cool. I have run the Ally Switch Farigiraf. It's not bad. And it gets Hyper Voice, so you can run Throat Spray and, like, have a really offensive Farigiraf, which is kind of the, the route most people have taken. But besides like these moves, it doesn't really get too much to support. Like people have run like Uproar for Farigiraf because you can do stuff where you stop Amoonguss from like being able to beat your Trick Room team, because a lot of Trick Room teams have problems with Amoonguss. It does, get like Psych Up, and it gets Roar, right? Yeah. It gets Roar, it gets Psychic Noise, which is a cool move. But basically, Indeedee is like all in on the support moves, and Farigiraf is like usually run pretty offensively. Like usually, you don't even see Protect all the time, but like Protect, Trick Room, Hyper Voice, fourth move like Psychic or Dazzling Gleam or something. Like, this is a pretty common Farigiraf set, and this is for teams that don't want Trick Room and they want to counter Trick Room, which Indeedee does this specifically, like, about as well as Farigiraf. It's just you can't run like dual terrains with Indeedee, and that's why you see people like splashing Farigiraf more, because they're running Rillaboom, and you don't want to run Psychic Terrain and Grassy Terrain. It gets confusing. I don't know if I'm making my point very well. I just want people to understand how strong Indeedee is, because it gets Trick Room now. Like it made it from like, okay, yeah, like this is the mon to set Psychic Terrain, to this is the Trick Room mon. Like for me, like I said, Indeedee goes on every Trick Room team that I make, and some teams that aren't Trick Room teams. It's so good. It does so much to like support a team. And like every other Trick Room user, like Hatterene doesn't really get supporting moves. Hatterene's a physical, like an attacking Pokemon that is very often supported by Indeedee. It does get After You, which is funny. I've run After You Hatterene before. Quash is just a slow Pokemon's really silly. And Hatterene, gets Magic Bounce. And Hatterene next to an Indeedee, you pretty much can't stop the trigger from going up. Dusclops is really bulky, okay? It's got Eviolite, it's got like crazy bulk to like boost with Eviolite. Trick Room, Will-O-Wisp. It gets a lot of like interesting moves because it gets like Haze. It gets Taunt. It gets like stuff to like trigger weakness policies on your friends. It's like slow. It's slow enough that if you run minimum speed, you are slower than Amoonguss. But it's not... Dusclops is an immovable object, and that is what Dusclops does. Dusclops is so hard to KO that it's going to get the Trick Room up unless you taunt it or like make it switch out or something. Same thing with Porygon 2. Porygon 2 doesn't really get too many support moves outside of Trick Room. I mean, it gets Recover to like heal itself, which is something that it has in common with Dusclops. They're just both really bulky, like Eviolite Pokemon that can heal themselves, and that's why they're really good. They're basically just... If you can only run one Pokemon with Trick Room on your team, like you're probably going to run like a Dusclops or a Porygon. If you're not going to run Indeedee, which I very often just run Indeedee as my only Trick Room setter because it's just that good for me. It works that well. What Porygon does is it gets a lot of coverage moves. You can run like random coverage for like Landorus or something in the form of Ice Beam, or you can run like Thunderbolt for like Urshifu or something like that. And then the other like priority blocking ones that aren't Farigiraf, like Serena doesn't even get Trick Room. Serena is a fully offensive Pokemon that just has Queenly Majesty. Like it doesn't really get too many supporting moves to like help its friends out. It's really just like counter Rillaboom, and that's all that it does. And Farigiraf and Indeedee just do that better, and that's why you never really see Serena. Bruxish does get Trick Room, but again, Bruxish is like a really offensive Pokemon. It doesn't really get too many supporting moves outside of like Taunt and Trick Room. And if you want like an offensive mon, like Bruxish is actually a little bit better than Serena because it has like a better defensive typing a lot of the time, and it gets priority moves itself. It can run Aqua Jet, it can run Wave Crash. Does it get Aqua Jet? It does, right? Yeah. Bruxish is really cool for Colossal. And then other like redirection Pokemon, just talking about like the ones that are like popular, because there's like more Follow Me users than this, but Ogerpon is a very supportive Pokemon because it has Follow Me and it's like immune to Urshifu Rapid Strike, but it's an offensive Pokemon that just so happens to get Follow Me, and you can run a lot of bulk and still do a lot of damage because Ogerpon has like nuts stats, but it doesn't like run much support usually. I guess you can run like Encore or Taunt or whatever, but and then like pretty much all Clefairy does is redirect and maybe click Heal Pulse, if that makes sense. Same thing for Maushold. Pretty much most of the time, like all it does is redirect, and like maybe you can run like an offensive Maushold set, but you don't really see that very often. I mean, you don't really see Maushold very often in general these days. It's not very bulky. It's really hard for it to eat like big hits, and it's like a fast, like kind of frail Pokemon, if that makes sense. Like it's really hard to get it to eat. Like I mean I'm sure you can EV it to like eat a Surging Strikes, but it probably will only eat one Surging Strikes, and like it's gonna be close. Whereas in Indeedee, like most of the time you just run max defense, and you will eat a Surging Strikes if they Terra, you will eat a Surging Strikes if they have the Rain, and sometimes you'll even eat it if they have both, depending on the Urshifu. Whereas Mousehold is struggling to eat just like the neutral Surging Strikes. I don't know. I don't think I've made my point very well, but this is the argument that I have for the amount of time that I have, and hopefully you understand. If we like, we can look at tournament results. Indeed, okay, yeah. Victory Road. Because Indeedee is actually like really high in the usage stats for Charlotte. Like, so is Fergraf, but Indeedee made top 8. There's an Indeedee right there on an expanding horse team, expanding deer. And if we keep going, let's see how many more Indeedees are there in day 2. Because I know it was like fairly high in the usage if I remember. Look at that Magmar. Magmar is a really good redirection Pokemon too, but it's good because it can burn Urshifu. That's a Weezing team? Look at that. That's such a weird Weezing team. I haven't looked at these results. Okay, yeah, so we're starting to get it. Like, a lot of them didn't place very high, but this is like a one-off support Pokemon or like supporting Expanding Force. This is just regular supported DD to stop like priority. This one too. And it sets up Trick Room. Yeah, if you just want to slap on like a redirection Pokemon that can also click Trick Room, like Indeedee is so good. It is the only redirection Pokemon that gets Trick Room, and it's kind of hard for me to like quantify how big that is. It's really, really big. It's really, really good. But I hopefully I have, you know, articulated what I was trying to say. I probably didn't, but you know, it be what it be. It's okay. This is the video that I had the time to make. And hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you learned something about Indeedee female and how good it is. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you leave me a big fat like, leave me a comment, tell me what you want to see in the future. You know, subscribe if you watch this whole video of me like ranting and I probably didn't even make sense. And with that, everybody, my name is Andrew. I'll catch you guys next time. Once upon a time, man, I heard that I was struggling. Came from a gym where power creep wasn't coming in. Face long, stats tight, defense up, shack height. Sturdy on me, sash like, got the TM last night. Hit me with that good move, make this mount act right. Bast boys, bout to hit that builder. I know that's right. Big Bast busting out these body presses. Bout to buy a body bag and beat them back and make them pack it up. Big Bast busting out these body presses. Bout to buy a body bag and